But you still managed to get in a little bit of trouble, didn't you?
I did. I did. Uh, it was all about when I got older, we moved to Florida. And so built a home out there, and it was out in the country and all that stuff. And so, but when I started school, I still had some speech issues, and of course that took some years to get off of. And I had a teacher who probably one of the most beautiful women to this day. Her name was Miss Monk, and she saw I had some speech impairments. So she said, I want you to sit next to me because you can help me with the class. And she left it like that. So the kids did not pick up on it. I knew right away because she gave me a twinkled look in her eyes to sit up there with her. But she worked with me. She taught me patience, to be calm, and to listen what is being told to me because it would help me with my speech. And that young age, that was tough on me because I still was scared to death. But it went very well that year. Everything went well. And so up until I would say the fifth grade is when racism was not very strong, but it was already starting to show its ugly head. And I remember some a little bit older kids were getting in a fight, and there was more white kids than blacks. And I knew the two black kids, who I still to this day remember, is the white kids were just jumping on the kids, whipping them pretty hard. I jumped in and started pulling the white kids off of beating. They were, of course, when you're young, you're not really getting beat, but you're getting hit a lot. And so they turned on me, and we all had this little fight, and we all had got sent to the administration office. And I don't know at that point if that point made a point for me to say, this is wrong, because I was told by the white boys I better never pick them over our white friends at white school.
So don't pick blacks over whites. So
Yes.
was that back in the fifth grade?
Yes.
Okay, so it was at an early, yeah. So
It was up early, but I did not know the extreme that all that was going to come up to. But
yeah, it got worse, didn't it?
It did, and several years later, I'm jumping up because everything else started working itself out with me as far as the school, my speech. I got that pretty well licked. But I remember racism was starting to come around. The Martin Luther King, we kept hearing about that, and we started seeing it on TV. And so people started getting their own opinions. And I was probably in the wrong state at the wrong time, because I still to this day believe you look at the person, not the color. And even then, and I'll never forget it, it was announced. Back then they used to have announcements before classes started by the principal, what's going to happen, what's going on, what this and that. So we all knew that he even announced saying, we're going to have some outside people come, and they're not authorized to be here, but we're not going to bother them as long as they do not come into the school. What they do outside is their business, but we want you to either get on a bus or get your parents to come pick you up. You're not to walk home or any other way of transportation other than what I just described to you. And it was a big thing because everybody knew something was up. We just did not know how much. So we all get through that, and I saw the demonstration, but there were mainly nobody from our school. One, I don't think none of us could understand what was going on as far as what it's going to make the future look like for us. And so it sort of went uneventful other than a big thing for everybody to see and expect something to happen, but it didn't, thank goodness. But I want to jump up on that subject. A couple of years, I had bought a car, and it was a hot rod. Of course, what's so funny is I know nothing about cars, but my cousin who had went off to the University of Georgia sold me his car. It was a red GTO, California orange, what they call it basically. But anyway, I bought it. I'm not a mechanic, never thought I would be, but it was constantly needing things done to it. And so, but if you had a car at school, you were pretty popular because people always wanted to get a ride with you. We, the people there, we really did not have a preference race-wide in my family. And we had two housekeepers, and they both were people of color, who we wound up just loving them. Everybody was so close. And this Mama Norris, what we called her, had a son named Jerry. He was in my classes. And when all this started coming down before it happened, he told me, he says, look, don't come around my group where I'm at, because I know I cannot keep anybody off of you if things turn bad. And I was naive. I go, well, if somebody jumps on you, I won't be there. And he said, I know that, Michael, but I'm going to have so many people, I can't save you. And I said, wow, okay. And that's when I realized things might be getting a little bad. Well, the principal made the announcements and all that kind of stuff, and everybody thought, well, this is going to blow over. And school was in. We were already at our classes and stuff, and you have break periods and lunch and stuff. Well, the principal said, nobody's going to go out to lunch today, but if you want to go outside, just the area that we have told you, you can go. Don't go beyond that, because we're going to have some of our coaches and some of their teachers are going to be out there, because all of you know there's probably going to be a demonstration here. And it's perfectly legal as long as certain criteria are met. So everybody thought, well, that was a big thing. We all went out, and they were already coming, hundreds of people. And the thing that was concerning is there were a lot of young kids like us, but there were some older young people. And they had these little horns that they could talk through, and they were yelling stuff and this and that. And what happened was, I went to see Jerry and went across the boundary. It was an imaginary boundary that they had sort of set up. Well, Jerry turned around and yelled at me, run, get back across. Well, the problem is, a couple of them had ran across already, who I knew, but I didn't think no violence would come from that. Both of them jumped on me, and when that happened, it was like a swarm of bees. They swarmed on me, and the teachers and principals and all that was prohibiting people to run to my rescue. Well, what happened was, Jerry, the young guy that I've known, his mom had worked for us forever, we were all real close. He went in, and they told him, they pushed him aside, actually grabbed his hair and pulled him and threw him aside and said, you get out of here or you're not going to walk out of here. I remember them yelling that. Well, a lot of those people were not even from our school. They were older. And when they rushed me, it scared Jerry so bad that they were doing that to him that he didn't do anymore. And of course, there was nothing he could do. Well, they got me, and I fought, and they whipped me very bad. I've never been whipped in the head, all over my body. I was kicked, bit, spit on. I was bleeding all over. When a coach jumped through and went through it and grabbed me, and I'll never forget, he grabbed me by my collar and my hair and pulled me through it, and he had his whistle blowing. And then the state troopers were running up at that point, but they saw me. I couldn't see. I knew I was bleeding all over, but I couldn't see because I had so much blood on me. And they threw me in a police car. And I'll never forget that. He was a state trooper named Sergeant Kilpatrick, redheaded guy. And he put me in that car and he drove me to the hospital. They were waiting, they put me in there. And it wasn't long before I hear a familiar voice. I couldn't see. My eyes were both shut and I had bled out of my ears and groin, all that kind of stuff. But he said
Who was it?
that Sergeant Kilpatrick had got me out of there, and he had said, not everybody's this way, son. Not everybody's this way. But he did, I'll never forget, he says, but I have a horrible feeling this nightmare is going to get larger and larger and larger. So you remember what I'm telling you. I know you can't see me, and you don't know who I am, and he described his name and stuff. So he leaves, and then I hear a familiar voice. And they got in, this person, and I heard another voice, a younger person, and the older person, I heard her scream. And she screamed, "What have you done to my baby?" And I felt her rush, I couldn't see, but she rushed to bed, got halfway up, I had a bunch of stuff hanging out, tubes and stuff, and she made her son Jerry go with her. He jumped up, and the nurses came in and she had me, holding me, Jerry was holding me, crying. So that I will never forget to the day I die. That felt so good to have some warm, caring arms holding you and caring for you, and knowing that you know they loved you to go through what they did. Because I was afraid after this happened that Jerry would probably be attacked and worse. And his mother and his aunt, they left and went somewhere for about 2 months. And then they came back. They couldn't get a job. I know my father stepped in and got her job. And so it worked out, but those kind of things like that will always stick with me. And all through my life, I wondered, why me? Because there's a lot more as we go through. I mean, I get in these situations, don't want it, do not want to be there, but I do. And things happen. And I've been blessed that it might not have happened perfectly, but I came out through these instances that was happening.